Hey guys, Des Asante here from mixlessons.com. I wanted to take a couple minutes today to try to help you guys make mixing easy. In the beginning, it can be a daunting process. You've got all these tracks on the screen. You've got compressors and EQs and reverbs and delays and all these things to learn about and consider when you're putting your mix together, and it can seem overwhelming. Well, I wanted to let you guys know that there is a way to make your mixes easy and to get to the fun part quicker and to start hearing great results much faster than perhaps you've been able to in the past. And the trick is simply planning your mix out. Mix the whole tune before you even touch a fader in your head. And what do I mean by this? Basically, if you understand how compression and EQ works and how you can use reverbs and delays to produce depth and some of these things that we talk about all the time, I'm going to assume you know the techniques. The techniques are easy to learn. There's information all over the internet that's going to tell you exactly how to use these tools, what they do, and how you might implement them in your mixes. But what no one seems to be talking about is what are you actually trying to accomplish when you throw EQs and compressors and reverbs all over your tracks? What are you actually trying to get? And that's where this planning and organizing ahead of time comes into play. What I recommend that you do is always first consider, listen through the tune and first consider where in the three-dimensional sound stage are each of the audio elements going to exist. That's the planning step number one. The next thing you want to consider is your depth strategy and how it relates to the sense of intimacy that you're trying to create, or the sense of grandeur. So in other words, is this mix going to be in a large space with elements that are very, very distant and elements that are very, very up close, and quite a dramatic contrast between the two? Or is the whole mix going to be a bit more of an intimate vibe where it sounds like you're in a room with a band and they're jamming for you, right? So that's the other thing to consider. And once you've got those things sorted out, the last thing you want to think about is the emotional content of each section. So in each section of the tune, what are the primary audio elements for starters, and what's the primary emotional driving element? A lot of times it's the vocals. Sometimes it's just a little lick that comes in on a steel guitar or a keyboard or something like that adds a certain emotional element. And this is where you're going to get a little bit more creative as a mixer, because that's not set in stone. There's no black and white, very technical ways to approach that. You've got to inject a little bit of your own tastes. Okay, so first of all, where in the panorama spectrum is everything going to go? You can't have everything coming out of the center. Where in the depth field is everything going to go? How are you going to use your EQs to make things not compete with one another? So that's the physical placement of all the elements. Once you've got that, what you want to do is consider from section to section in the tune two things. What are the most important audio elements of this section, and how am I going to draw those to the forefront with my automation or with my decision making? And what's the most emotionally impactful element, which are sometimes the same thing but not always the same thing, and how am I going to present that emotionally impactful element so that it has maximum emotional impact? Okay, that's just a little quick tip for you guys. Before we wrap it up, have a quick look at one of my depth and sort of 3D spatial plans for one of the mixes that I worked on recently. These are all the elements. This was a 32 track session. These were all the elements that were included in the mix. I have the stuff in the green box, which are the elements that typically go in that sacred space in the center of the mix, the features, the vocals, the kick drum, the snare drum, things like that. And then I have planned out, this was done before I started mixing, where everything else is going to go in the mix, where they're going to go both horizontally with my panorama strategy, and where they're going to be placed in the depth of field of my mix, using my ambient effects like reverbs and delays to achieve the illusion of distance and to be able to place things very strategically. Okay, so I recommend that you pull out a pencil and a paper, plan this stuff out before you touch a fader, and then when you start to mix, assuming you have an understanding of the tools that are used to achieve these things, you're going to get to the fun part much quicker, and you're going to hear fruitful results very quickly. So I hope you found that useful. We'll see you on the next quick tip. For more free video mixing quick tips, visit www.mixlessons.com.